Hey, how's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Sunday afternoon. November 2nd, 2025 is the date, 12:19 p.m. here, California time. Latest activity here on the earthquake 3D globe shows a 1.6 up into the Alaska area. A little bit of movement happening there in the Philippines just a short while ago. Got a somewhat of a deeper earthquake here striking away from the Philippine Trench, but it is fairly deep here, so one of the subduction zones out here definitely getting some deeper activity today. That 5.5 coming in just about an hour and a half ago or so. Got to watch this area. We've been looking at, quite a bit of movement out here in the Philippines recently. This is the last 30 days of earthquake activity. We've seen a number of larger events, including that 7.4. The Philippine Trench here is a major producer in big-time earthquake activity. Most of the movement has come to a halt roughly about this segment southward, but nothing up here yet. Watching the Manila Trench as well, that's got some potential for some larger activity. There's been a handful of earthquakes around that region. But with this deeper earthquake here on the northern side of where we've seen all the recent activity, that leads me to believe here that something else is brewing across this segment of the Philippine Trench, or maybe potentially just in general a stronger quake across the Philippine Trench as a whole. Do have to watch that because it can see some larger events, as far as mega quake activity. And a 7.4 just really doesn't relieve the strain of what is capable out here. Seen a number of sixes as well working their way northward throughout the last 30 days. As you can see, there was a 6-pointer here, 6-pointer back on the 11th of October. Migration northward, now deeper activity underneath the area. Watch that subduction zone closely. Let's see what we got here for the area south into the crunch zone. A lot of older activity from yesterday, so technically where we got our most recent newer movement at, looks like the middle or the Mediterranean region, Turkey area. Quite a few threes and whatnot stirring up out there. It's just been a rinse and repeat cycle of earthquakes. Some newer quake activity, it looks like, here around the Java Trench, and I've seen a new one pop up here as well in the green flag, but I don't see anything big happening out here for now, but I do want to keep an eye there on the Philippine Trench with that movement happening today. Those deeper quakes, you have to watch them. They normally trigger quite a bit of stress towards the surface area where the locked zones consist. Japan area, a couple earthquakes there around the Japan Trench. Nothing going on there for the Krokam-Chatka Trench today. It's a little surprising. Some older activity here across the Tonga Trench and the Kermadec Trench. Let's see what else we got. There's Alaska, pretty deep earthquake there, 3.9. That is into the Aleutian Trench here. Let's see, 121 miles deep into that subduction zone. The Aleutian Trench here has it's a major producer of megaquakes up in the 9 range. And it's been a while since we've seen a 9-pointer. But we've recently had a 7.4, I believe it was, out here around the Sand Point area. And back in 2021 in 8.1 across one of these segments. But, this is one of those zones that really doesn't take hundreds and hundreds of years to build up strain and stress to produce a big earthquake. On average, we get about 60 mm of slip a year across this segment around the Gulf of Alaska, increasing as you go westerly there along that plate boundary. And of course, over here, where everything tends to subduct and collide, all the arrows are pointing to each other. That's where earthquake activity happens on pretty much every day. We're always seeing earthquake activity out here in the 3 and 4 range, sometimes 5s. But the megaquake potential does exist out there in certain zones. Slip rates, sometimes can be higher than the 100 mm per year around the Philippines. That's why I'm saying watch that area with the deeper movement. Watch that subduction zone there, the Manila Trench and the Philippine Trench. All right, but for the rest of Alaska here, there's definitely a handful of earthquakes today above the 2.5 range. The largest one being that super deep earthquake, 3.9, 121 miles deep. So watch this area upstream. Across the Pacific Northwest, not a whole lot showing up. We got one earthquake on Mount Rainier and one on Mount St. Helens. I do want to double check that because these should be easily viewable on a seismograph station there. So let's go check that out. By the way, tremor counts from last night, 294, mainly across the southern end there of the Cascadia subduction zone. So at Mount Rainier, we'll take a look here at the seismograph station that's recorded. Their earthquake being reported as a 0.6 at 3:34 in the morning. This morning here, 3:34 for a 0.6 is probably going to be maybe this earthquake right here, this little darker line. I mean, if that's a 0.6, what about all these hundreds of other ones? You know, what gives here? That's crazy. What about this earthquake that was about almost 3 a.m.? But if you look here, they're stating 3:34 in the morning today. The only thing I can think of is maybe one of these smaller quakes here, maybe this one. But, you know, again, what gives with all this other earthquake activity? That's definitely legit earthquake activity out here. For the Mount St. Helens station, let's see what we got here. Theirs was reported last night at 10:30, about 10:30 p.m. local time. That's my time here, so it's going to match the Washington time. For a 0.8, that should easily be viewable. Not an 8 magnitude, but a 0.8, barely a 1, right up at the summit area. So at 22:31. Here's the 22 hour. See the 22 hour right here? 22:31. Well, that's going to be... Why do I have to look so hard for this earthquake? There's legit earthquakes showing up here, but these are not being reported. Why? I'm guessing it might be this one. Well, that's past the 31 hour. It could be this one right here. Well, what gives with this? You know, why are they choosing to pick this smallest one here when there's highly, much more larger quakes happening? You know, what about this one in the afternoon? What about this one at 9, probably about 9:15 or so? I don't get it. It's weird. Definitely some earthquake activity showing up, but what, you know, why they got a definition of picking one of these barely visible ones when there's a lot? I mean, if that's going to be a 0.8, those have to be up in the 1 range at least, or maybe the 2 range. Anyway, we'll continue to check back on that. Definitely, I'll tell you what, I'll stand with my word. They've been having a swarm since July there at Mount Rainier. It never went away. Mount St. Helens has been having its own swarm in the last month or so. That is continuing to this date. There's no inflation going on out there across the area for now, but it is something, you know, that I'm watching. There's a couple different ways you can check out the GPS stations up here. We'll check out Mount St. Helens real quick. This is the dome area. This is offline. I mean, you'd want to check where things are inflating. If they were, the dome would be one area. I see deflation, and it's been going down. This is the vertical displacement here. At the northern flank or northeastern flank up here, that is offline. This one's fairly recent, pretty consistent, been going down a little bit. I don't see any upturn, up trends that are pointing towards inflation. That's 2014. Check down south here. Yeah, kind of going down. Like I say, if they got earthquake activity. That's one thing that I'm pretty set and solid in. But I don't see any inflation going on across any of those volcanoes for now. Northern California, handful of smaller quakes. Both of those from yesterday. One felt earthquake today in the Bay Area. That is on the Hayward Fault for a 2.4. Pretty shallow. Well, about 2 miles underneath the area or so. There was quite a few reports of that coming in. Now, notice this is still underneath an automatic status here, so they have yet to review and determine the exact size of that earthquake. I mean, you can look at some of these magnitudes here that the computer system spit out. They came out with a 2.4 error rate of a 0.14, so that's not super low. So there's a little bit of error issues with that. Most of the magnitudes here on the right are what the computer system spit out. Probably gonna stick with a 2.4, maybe a 2.5 once they review it. I'm just looking at some of these magnitudes here because they are up in the 2.5 range. There's one that was reporting a 3.5, but if that was the case, that it would be felt by a lot more people out there. Clustering going on here across this area of the plate boundary, mainly off the creeping section. A couple earthquakes here. Oh man, pretty close to the Parkfield section. One thing I've noticed here, we're getting a lot of earthquake activity on the on the Pacific side and the North American side, but none actually on the plate boundary here. This area of the San Andreas Fault's fairly well primed for at least a 6-pointer. It's got regular intervals there of 20 to 22 years on average where it sees a 6.0 earthquake. The last one was back in 2004, not 2024, but 21 years ago. So that should tell you something right there. Also an earthquake way off the coast here of Los Angeles, Long Beach area, 3.2, about 5 miles deep out there. That's kind of an odd quake. Occasionally we will get some earthquakes offshore, as you can see here in the last 30 days, but that's a little bit further offshore. I'm not for sure which fault system that is associated with, but 3-pointer. I think that's the only one above 2.5 today. Most of the other activity here is very small microquake movement. Excuse me. I just came up out of the blue. Hopefully I'm not getting the cold going on. Not good. Been pretty fortunate so far. Nevada still got some earthquake activity from yesterday, a little bit from today. Nothing showing up there on Yellowstone. You know how I feel about that. It's these graphs out here are just not. They're not updating, whether it's because of the government shutdown or just because they don't want to report it. I was under the assumption here that it doesn't take a human to update the digital graphs. It's on a computer system. It automatically just cycles through the days and reports the earthquakes, and it's been offline since the 24th. So really can't check the good ones in terms of the readable graphs there at Yellowstone. The ones they have there on the University of Utah, it almost looks like to me it looks like they tried to amplify them a little bit ago. Maybe this one here, but it still doesn't look right. There is some earthquake activity showing up here, a couple smaller ones. But I think this is still part of an ongoing swarm that started here a few days ago. There was a 3.7 out here in the area, and the swarm itself I don't think ever went away. If this, it just doesn't look right. It's really hard to read these graphs. Definitely nothing what it used to look like. This almost looks like wind showing up here in the afternoon time period. Is that even current right now? Let me see here. That wouldn't, is that right? Is this UTC time? Let me see here real quick. Let me double check that. I guess that's right. 20, because it's about 2032 or so. That would match that. Okay. So these are current, but again, the amplitude sensitivity here, you can turn up these lines to an extent, but I don't know about the sensitivity. It still looks off. It's it kind of bugs me. It should look a little bit something like this here, a little bit more prominent in terms of seeing the earthquake signals nearby and at a distance from that seismograph station there. But something's happened, these lines are just as small as the ones that we're seeing currently, but it's the sensitivity here that I'm looking for, that when a quake shows up, whether it's a 1.5 or 2.0, it should show up across a number of seismograph stations here. And the way that they have it right now, it's still squashed out here. Look, these are probably earthquakes, but they're small. They're microquake activity, but they should come in a little bit bigger than that. All right, moving on past here, Texas oil fields, Permian Basin, just rock and roll every day. That's what goes on out there. Lots of earthquakes. New Madrid seismic zone, I believe that's from yesterday. It is 2.2. Nothing going on there across the eastern portion of the country. The largest quake so far today is going to that 5.5 deep earthquake there into the Philippines region. Like I say, watch that closely. That was from last night, this morning. Previous one to that's 5.2 here in the Indonesia area. So we do have quite a bit of movement going on, deeper activity. Let's see, anything else going on? South America pretty active out there. 2-pointer coming in, it looks like, around the Chile area. The Atlantic Ocean, pretty quiet. And there's our swarms out there in Turkey and the areas to the east. It looks like a 4.2 out there in, where's that at? Around that border of a couple different countries. That was coming in this morning, a 4.3. Nothing big, but in general, we're still looking at pretty active conditions here around the Turkey area. Still think something's bigger is brewing out here. It's just an odd sequence of events. This long duration swarm of activity. All right, let's see. We also have a coronal hole that's just about to face us. So this will be interesting to watch here. It's going to be this area right here. This is fairly recent, the 2024 UTC time on the 2nd. This one, not so much. It's behind by about 7 hours. So 94 here is more closer here to the center disk of the sun, almost perfectly lined up. When this is lined up, we'll be under the influence of magnetic lines that shoot directly out into space from this coronal hole. And last few times here, we've been getting quite a bit of earthquake activity when these are directly lined up facing the planet. I'm not talking about just 3s and 4s and 5s. It normally stirs up larger activity up in the 6 range and above. We do have another 4.1 coming in to the area, Philippines region, that looks like, just to the south. So that's why I'm saying things are moving out here, and you get that deeper earthquake activity. That's a good indicator to watch for some larger movement towards the locked areas of the subduction zones. So we'll watch that. That's getting close. Flaring activity been bumped up a little bit. 25% chance there for M flare, X flare around 5%. There's really, let me go over here and see what we got. Let's go over here to the stand. Oh, wait a minute. Didn't I bookmark them last night? Let's see here. Yes, I did. Okay, good. This is a more recent imagery of the magnetogram image of the sunspots. It shows their polarity and the complexity of individual sunspots. This one down here kind of popped up out of the blue. It does look like a newer spot. It's getting quite a bit of different colors in there. Maybe a one to watch here as it's growing. The active area is up here on the northeastern area of the sun. It's fairly massive. Definitely got some decent coverage area. A little bit of complexity. I can't remember the name of the sunspot last time it came out here. I believe it's one of the ones that have gone around, multiple times. I don't think that's a new one that's popped up. It's just the same old sunspot from many times ago. Just kind of holding on, holding steady. But we'll watch that. Also another area way back over here, just kind of peeking around the corner. I do think flare threats will increase here as we go on towards next week. So that's why they've been bumped up a little bit. No major wars in the forecast. Nothing going on there on the sun for now. A quick glance at any close approach asteroids to the planet shows us that, let's see what we got today. This one's way far away. 110 foot. Millions of miles away. All of these are. So nothing of any close proximity to the planet. As far as any severe weather goes across the area today, very minimal. A little bit of thunderstorm activity out here. That's just general pop-up thunderstorms. Nothing for tornado, wind, or hail. We do have a decent system coming in here to the west coast. I like it. Thank you very much to whoever. Look at that storm coming in there. Slamming right into Northern California with very impressive rainfall rates. Somewhere around 5 to 6 inches is expected around Crescent City, Eureka, Brookings, Oregon. Here in the Sacramento Valley or around Chico, we should pick up about 1 inch and 1.5 inches of rain from that system. It does look like there's some more systems behind it. We'll have to watch that. The one for Southern California comes a little bit later, not this week, coming up, but the next week, the following week. Looks like there'll be a cutoff low pressure system they're bringing in. A substantial amount of moisture there for almost the entire, it looks like the entire state there of California, including some snow across the Sierra Nevada mountains. So that's what we like to see. This is our rainy pattern. This is not when we need 70s and 80s and dry weather. If we don't get rain during November, December, January, and February, when our months are the wettest, that will put us way behind and put us in a drought, because we don't get, Northern California here where I'm at, we don't get those summer showers and fall showers. For the most part, November till about February or March is when we get that, should be getting that decent rain, and it looks fairly promising there. Total accumulated precipitation runs here show some decent totals there across California, as I mentioned. So we'll definitely check back on that. Let's see here. Let's check out the quantitative precipitation forecast here. This is a 7-day. Yeah, see, it shows us up above about 1.5 inches or so, mainly. Looks like around Chico. Less here as you go down around the San Joaquin Valley, but they're going to get in on that secondary storm that comes in after that 7-day period. Either way, a lot of rainfall coming up here, folks, for sure. Another new earthquake up here along the Aleutian Trench, 4.5 in the Rat Islands region, 21 miles deep there. So we have, we got some adjustment going on here, there, everywhere. Keep an eye on the Philippines for sure. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening for the Sunday night update. Oh, hold on a second here. Got a big earthquake showing up on the Turkey station. Stand by. Oh, there we go. 6.4 coming in right now. You guys see that? I was just about ready to call it. I always like to look at these seismograph stations to see if anything's coming in, and I know what a big earthquake looks like on the seismo. That's not in Turkey, but it's nearby. That is a pretty big one. It looks like it's over here around the Afghanistan area, maybe. See that 6.4? Let me go over here to the EMSC model and see what we got. I know I'm going to have a few comments saying, where's the 6.4 at? How come you didn't cover that first? Well, it just came in as about ready to end my update video, so I guess I'll include a little quote or a little wording there in my description so people don't get confused. But sometimes when I'm doing these live updates, we get these large events come in, and of course I'm going to use this as a decent thumbnail because it's kind of a big deal. It's a big earthquake. 10 miles or 10 kilometers, so pretty shallow in the area. I guarantee you something of that size is going to do some damage across that area. Let me see if we got... yeah, this is northern Afghanistan, it looks like. I guess you could call it northern Afghanistan. Right up here in this area. Population density a little scattered out there, but whoever is out there, I'm sure felt that that earthquake quite strongly. and that is if it holds with a 6.4 level. Like I say, Turkey picked it up. The Philippines even showing that wave a little bit. Japan picked it up as well. At that distance, it could be a little bit larger than the 6.4. Just the way I'm looking at those readings on distant seismograph stations here. So for now, it's holding steady at a 6.4, but this is preliminary. It's see if it's been reviewed yet or not. By the GFZ folks there in Germany, they've reviewed it, but it has not officially been reviewed by anyone else. USGS can downgrade it, they can upgrade it. It may take them a little while to add that earthquake onto the map, but that's definitely a decent earthquake. Looks like following that 6.4, we got another 3.5 over here, deep. This area has definitely been brewing something big. I don't think it's just the 6.4. I do think there's something bigger above that level coming into the region. If you've been watching my videos, I've been talking about how that's been an unusual swarm out here of what they call aftershock activity from a 6-pointer. But they've had a couple 6-pointers, and the swarms they're not stopping. They're continuing. And now we're getting some larger activity in the region that I do think there's something bigger brewing out here, folks. The question is where, I'm definitely not a psychic, but I do know how things look before a big earthquake takes place. And that's got all the features of seeing one here soon, I think. Still 6.4. USGS going with a 6.3. One little blip of a downgrade, but that's still a large earthquake. It has been reviewed. And, these guys can get some big earthquakes out there for sure. So there we go. There's our largest quake. For those watching here at the end, like I say, I will include a little disclaimer that this large earthquake struck towards the end of the update video. People are just kind of wondering about it because a lot of people will just go for a title or a video on the main primary focus, but no way am I going to leave this out. That's a big earthquake. So for those that are more interested more in the specifics of this quake, obviously here we are at the end of the update video. Just be on guard, folks. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on. Things are starting to move. Got a massive coronal hole lining up with us. Here we go. We'll see you guys out here a little bit later on this evening. Stay safe out there.